I work in law, I'm the only woman doing this. I work in, tech or whatever it is, and I feel like I'm on my own, but this has inspired me. And, what I say to those women, one of our Corinthians actually came back to play after having a baby in the 1960s, which is very progressive at the time, her responsibilities. So we've literally built that into the edit of the film. So it's taken us longer, but I'm okay with that, because at the end of the day, I've seen my kids and Craig's seen his kids, and we've still managed to make a film.
Everybody thought it was a joke, girls playing football.
It's for boys, it's not for girls.
Women's football?
Curving it with your left foot, your right foot.
What I loved most of all was my sliding tackles.
When they saw how far I could kick a ball, you're in.
They were all laughing when you come out on the pitch, and I used to think,
The finger being pointed, stop that.
they just laughed at us basically. But they soon shut up when they saw us playing.
Women can play sport. We can kick a ball with some balls.
We played the game as the men played it.
I used to like fouling people.
Stop her, she's only a girl.
If you can't stop them, drop them.
For God's sake, stop her.
They didn't want women to play football, did they? That was it.
It wasn't ladylike.
Girls and guys can do the same. Now let's get back to the game.
One word.
Down your cellar, cough off with a fella. It's football. You heavy with seasons like sexploit. It's football.
Corinthians were a ladies' football team.
Corinthians from Manchester.
We never seemed to lose.
Just a band of girls that were determined to play football.
5-0, 10-0, 15.
And you had to see us play to believe how good we were.
But you can't let it go.
The FA thought that women are still at the kitchen sink and washing all the men's underpants.
That's a load of crap, that, you know.
We didn't want to do that anymore.
It's football.
When that South American trip came off, wow.
To play in proper grounds with proper crowds.
We did 29 flights.
The West Indies, Jamaica.
You know, they're turning up in the thousands watching you.
In Venezuela, I think it was 65,000.
Everywhere we went, we were mobbed.
And there's 45,000 people screaming and shouting at you. It was phenomenal.
It was like being in a film set, really.
But you can't let it go. Down pipes like a girl.
We did a lot of things the manager didn't know about.
Look, there's a limbo party at midnight on the beach.
But you can't let it go. Down pipes like a girl.
We were rebels against the system.
And we had to beat them. We had to beat them.
Gladiators. That's what I felt. We were gladiators.
You're going to Berlin, you're playing in an international European competition.
Right, you're playing for your country now, girls.
Can you do it?
What you just saw was more than a glimpse into the past. It was a window into courage, resilience, and the untold story of women who refuse to be sidelined. You know, with World Telecommunication and Information Society Day just around the corner, and this year's theme focusing on gender equality in digital transformation, today's conversation feels even more relevant. At Tech Mahindra, diversity, inclusion, education has been very, very close to our hearts. In fact, we recently co-sponsored the documentary, The Corinthians, We Were the Champions, along with BT, a project that beautifully captures the essence of inclusive leadership and giving voice to diverse stories. The movie is a powerful reminder of the quiet revolution that has shaped our world, often without recognition. Today, we are here to reflect on what this story meant for us now in the world of leadership and everyday impact. I'm Sonali, Diddee, and today I'm honored to host this conversation with the storyteller who brought these voices to life, filmmaker Helen Tither. Helen, thank you for joining us. We are really looking forward to having a meaningful dialogue during this session and uncover the stories and perspectives that are still unknown to many. So let's dive in. Can you please start by telling us who were the Corinthians and what drew you to their story in the first place?
Great. Well, thanks for having me today. It's great to be talking to you, and I'm so proud to be speaking to you all at Tech Mahindra and for your support and sponsorship of the film. So thank you for that. So who were the Corinthians? Great question. That's what we start the film with. They were a women's football team set up in Manchester in the UK in 1949. And at that time, there was a ban in England on women playing football. It was put in place by the English Football Association in the 1920s. And it was a ban that lasted for 50 years. And basically what it said was women weren't allowed to play on official pitches affiliated to the Football Association. There weren't any clubs that let them play would be struck out of the association. Any referees or coaches that helped them would be struck off. And that ban was in place for 50 years. It lasted until 1970, 71. And the reason for that was women's football was really successful. I mean, women have always played football. Back in ancient China, there's women playing football. There's, women playing football in Victorian times when it was set up. And during the war, during World War One, it became very successful in the UK. They would have crowds of, 50,000 people coming to watch women's teams play. So by the 1920s, the Football Association didn't like that. They thought it was affecting the men's game and they clamped down on it. And basically the ban meant that there was nowhere for the women's teams to play. These women's teams that were all over the country, and gradually, they died out. They were sidelined and they could just play on parks or anywhere they could find. So the Corinthians were set up in 1949 by this guy, Percy Ashley, who was a football scout, whose daughter Doris was an amazing football player. She's possibly one of the best female football players we've ever had in this country. And she was amazing. So he set up this team around her so she'd have a team to play in. And he formed this sort of super team and he advertised in the local paper. They found a local park, they made that their base, and they set up a team and they played for 2 decades. They played for 21 years until the ban was lifted. They carried on after that, and they became one of the most successful women's football teams we've ever had in the UK. They toured the world. They became known as the globe-trotting Corinthians, a time, when not only in this country, but in many countries around the world, women's football was being clamped down on or banned. They played Germany in 1957 to win a European Cup, and they were the first women's team to tour South America. So they became globally famous. But back home in the UK, they were still banned from playing in stadiums or on proper, grounds, and had to sort of play on parks to whoever they could get to come and watch them. So that's who the team were, and sadly they became forgotten. Even in where I'm based in Manchester in the UK, even in their home city, they were forgotten until more recently when their story started to be told again. And that's when I sort of noticed a local article in the paper and thought that'd be a good documentary.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm amazed at how in those times, and you would think, that British were pretty modern during those times, but I think across the world, there was this whole urge of not letting women do what they wanted. So creating a film like this must have been, will come with its own unique challenges. What was the journey like? Were you able to speak to some of these interviewers, to the people, and how did you put the whole story together?
Yeah, okay. Well, the journey, I make documentaries for a living, so I find stories. I mainly focus on stories to do with women and untold stories. That's just my passion. So I found this story, and at the time, women's football, is enjoying a resurgence, isn't it? It's massive, especially here in the UK. And I thought, great. So the beginning of the journey was basically me thinking, this will be an easy film to make because everybody loves women's football and we'll easily make it and get it shown. Not the case for many reasons, because even though it is, everybody loves women's football now, it doesn't mean that, there's necessarily the acceptance that we think more widely. So that was a bit of a battle getting it made, which is where, kindly we've had this sponsorship from Tech M and BT to help us make that. So there's that sort of struggle of it. But also, this team played from 1949 until the 70s into the 80s, and many of the women have died. you know, sadly, and never told their story. And some of those women never told their story at all, and never told anybody they played football, because it was sort of seen as taboo, you know, at the time. And there was a bit of shame attached to it for some people. So they never told anybody. And when we started, we basically, the first step was to get any surviving players together, and we got a group of maybe 30 players together at the National Football Museum in Manchester, and I met them and I told them the process, how I work making a film, and how I like to include the women themselves in the film and make them part of the process and make sure we're telling their stories, you know, accurately. So I met them there in 2022. Bear in mind, we're in 2025 and we're just finishing the film. So it's a much longer process than I thought. But yeah, when we met them all and we were pitching the story to get it commissioned and so on, sadly, more women were dying because, you know, they're in their 70s and 80s. And we thought, they're going to, you know, this story isn't going to get told unless we just commit to it and make it. So me and the crew who've worked together before we got any funding in place, we set up the interviews, and we did a week of interviews with the women because they and their families were so keen to tell their stories to us and get them on camera. So that was one of the challenges, was there's so few surviving members to tell the story. But we have 10 ladies who tell the story from 1949 up until about 1971, which is where we finish. And they tell the story between them, and the film is told entirely in their words. So it's all told by them. There's no narrator, there's no voiceover, there's nobody else. It's entirely told in the women's words, and that was really important to us to make sure, you know, this is the only film that we know of that is being made of women's stories in this period when they were banned from playing football. So we thought, if this is the film, it's got to be told by them, and that's what we set up doing. So there's many challenges: finding archive. We've been rooting around in people's cupboards, attics, tracking down trophies, missing footage that's not been seen for 50 years. We found cine tapes, we had them digitized. There's been a lot of research and you know, digging out facts. And because it was banned at the time, proper records weren't necessarily kept of all the games, and they weren't all filmed. So there's been a detective job in pinning down all the facts of what happened when and who won what match and where did, you know, so that's taken a long time as well. So many challenges, but it's been fun. We've found a lot of things that we didn't know existed before.
So actually what stood out for me was not only how boldly these women created space for themselves at a time when it was all banned. Yeah, when some society just denied them one. And I'm also, I also admire your team, you know, trying to give them a voice. You know, it must have been so exciting for them to know that somebody is still interested, wants to tell the story, because somewhere in the world, you know, there would be a lot of people who will get inspired by the story. So representation isn't just about visibility, it's about rewriting the whole narrative. What does representation mean to you? And how did Corinthians embody it?
Yeah. I think representation to me is, I make a lot of films about women in history, or, you know, untold stories of women. And what I've, you know, on screen is in the UK anyway. And, you know, I know it's come up in Hollywood films and so on. It's not only are women not represented on film, you know, 25% of documentaries in the UK are about women, and 25% of documentaries are directed by women. So we're not taking up much space on screen. And, you know, there are studies into how many lines women say on screen in dramas, how many women are shown as part of a program, and we're not 50% of coverage on screen. So that's really important to me, is to try and redress that balance. And that's why we tell those stories. And that's why it's important to me that if we're making a film about women, whoever they are, they're the ones telling the story. They're the ones with the words. They're the ones saying what they want to say. I mean, for instance, we made a film about Emmeline Pankhurst, the suffragette, a few years ago, and there's no footage of her speaking, but she did write an autobiography. So what we did was we had an actor bring her to life and read out lines from her autobiography. So she was speaking in the film. And I think it's so important to give women literally a voice. There are programs that are made about women where someone else is telling their story for them. And sadly, so often in history, women's diaries and archives and things like that are lost and forgotten. So we have these women, they're here. So it's so important for them to speak. So we spent a long time, I've got to know them really, really well. You know, before we even started filming, I went round to their houses. I met them lots of times. I took down all their stories, so I knew exactly what their stories were. And we had, each of them had a sort of half a day with us, with the crew. It was very, we filmed at a football club in Manchester because we wanted to portray them as footballers, not as elderly ladies, you know, and or you know, women over 60 are so often portrayed as grandmas, and we wanted, no, these are footballers, these are football women. And so they got to know me and the cameraman and everything really well, so they could be themselves. And another technique we used to help them tell their true story and represent them, I wanted people to watch it and feel like they were in the room with them, listening to their story like I was, because I felt so lucky that I'd heard all their stories, and I wanted to get that feeling for the viewer. So we used this cover on the lens of the camera, which is basically like a series of mirrors. So when I'm sat here behind the cameraman, me, they can look into the camera and see my face. So it's very, very hard if you're not a TV presenter to talk to the camera and be yourself. It's very nerve-wracking, and we wanted them to be themselves and tell their stories. So we set this special device up, and so I was in the screen of the camera and they felt like they were talking to me. And I think when you see the film, you'll feel that they're chatting to you and they're very natural, and they're able to tell their stories in a way maybe we don't see women of that age telling their stories. So I think, yeah, representation for me is truly like not just saying, yeah, we'll make this film about these women and we'll have a presenter and we'll tell it how it was. No, let those women say what happened and give them the opportunity to give their sort of best version of their story. So that's how we've done that with that film.
No, it's amazing what you just said, because even in the world of technology and telecom, we still see underrepresentation, yeah, and underrepresentation at the leadership level, at the level that where I work, yeah. Stories like these inspire us, and I think what I will take away from what you're just saying is the society or is our organization giving, building an environment for their voices to be told, for the women to come back, when they go for maternity leave and, still hold the same position. And therefore, there is a lot of work we actually in Tech Mahindra, as well as I'm sure I see that in Beti as well, doing a lot on trying to make sure that we have women at the right leadership level, and giving them the voice, giving them the training, giving them the support that they would need to do that. Now, Helen, from our experience as well, we see that while gender diversity is extensive at an entry level, because women, as they age, they do take a break when, they start their family, and when they come back, we start seeing that the numbers start to drop as they go towards the senior. Now, do you see that happening at your side as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I work in TV, usually, in the TV industry, in the media industry. Before that, I worked in newspapers, in print. And yeah, definitely. I've got 2 kids. I've got 2 boys, and I took time out when I had them. I'm a freelancer, so I come up with my own ideas and so on. And I found that when I came back, not very long after maternity leave, but guys who had been runners or researchers for me were suddenly directing, and there's a leapfrog effect, isn't there, when you come back? And also, it's our industry. I don't know about your industry, but the media industry is long hours. There's a lot of traveling. There's a lot of sort of barriers there for mums, but it's not impossible. But I think the notion is, oh, she won't be able to do that. Oh, she won't be able to fit that in, without even asking women. Is this how would you fit back into here? Because we've got so many skills, we've got so much experience and skills, and then you have your kids, you come back with even more skills. I mean, time management, juggling demands from children, and I find anyway that parents, mums and dads who've got young families come back and many times work more efficiently, because you've got that deadline. You want to get home to pick your kids up. You've got that. So you're working more efficiently when you are in work, and you're bringing extra skills. I think, yeah, you talk about inspiring people. And even playing the trailer and I've taken the Corinthians to various events, and they've done talks, and they've had standing ovations from people, women who aren't necessarily interested in football, but find the story of women with a courage and sort of rebellion really inspiring in their own industry. Afterwards, people have come up to us and said, I work in engineering, I'm the only woman in the room. I work in law, I'm the only woman doing this. I work in, tech or whatever it is, and I feel like I'm on my own, but this has inspired me. And what I say to those women, one of our Corinthians actually came back to play after having a baby in the 1960s, which is very progressive at the time. But what I always say to them is, you think you're on your own and you think you're the first in your industry to do this thing, but you're probably not. There's probably women who've gone before you who've made those same strides, but maybe they've not been, maybe they've been forgotten about, maybe it's not been recorded. So do a little bit of digging, have a little look around, see who the women are in your field who've done those things, and let them inspire you a bit further. But as well, I suppose, I think it's about what do they call it, it's about men stepping up as well within organizations and asking women questions when they're coming back, and encouraging them as well. It's not just about us as women having to sort of like push all the time. It's about that support, isn't it?
Couldn't agree more on this, Helen. Absolutely. These conversations are so important. And I do remember when I came back, after I had my son, I had my conditions on, like you said, that I would not be able to travel, and my organization, Tech Mahindra, adjusted to everything. Yeah. Even working from home. I was the first working from home registered in the UK. Yeah, so they changed. So the organization, my manager, George Ministry, they actually changed policies, to make the workplace inclusive. And it's just for the fact that I'm a young mother, And so I completely get that. Now at Tech Mahindra, we believe inclusion is a culture and not a checklist. But making that shift from policy to practice isn't easy. Did you see that kind of intentional inclusion show up in your filmmaking process as well?
Yeah, so we set up a company. We set up the company to make the film, and it's something I've always wanted to do. But like I say, I've got young kids, and I need to earn a living. And I thought, in the future. But this is the project that I have this WhatsApp group of 10 Corinthians, and we chat all the time, and they really inspire me all the time. And and I was like, I can't let these women down. We have to make this film. So we set up the company to make the film, but what I wanted from the start was to do things how I thought it should be done, and how not how necessarily I'd experienced it. So I wanted inclusion. The women, I wanted them to be part of the film. It's not my film, it's not the company's film, it's our film, and they're part of it. And I've shown most of them now the film itself, and they're all really happy with it. And I want them to feel like that's a representation of them. So there's inclusion of the cast, if you like, of the women taking part, but also of the team making it. There's no way I could have made this film without the editor Craig, the cameraman Greg, the producer Sarah, who in that first few weeks when we were like, we need to start filming, all said, forget about the money, let's go and film it, let's make it happen. And we know you'll find the money, we know you'll make it work. And they sort of all stepped up. So everything we do that's our core, filmmaking team, and others who've helped us, the illustrator, John, other people along the way. But as well, like in working practice, the editor I'm working with lives an hour and a half from me. So we've worked remotely online with the edit for most of the time. Sometimes I go and see him, and we've both got young kids. So we start after the school run, we work really hard, and then we finish at the school run time, and we both go and pick up our kids. And because it's important to me that, because it's not just women, it's men as well, have childcare responsibilities. So we've literally built that into the edit of the film. So it's taken us longer, but I'm okay with that, because at the end of the day, I've seen my kids and Craig's seen his kids, and we've still managed to make a film. So I think though, I would like that to be a sort of practice going forward, that we can build a company where people have families, and it's not a detriment, it's part of who you are, and those skills are great, and sort of bring them in. So that's how it sort of worked with our process, if you like.
Oh, that's amazing. Actually, if you ever notice, my signature always has this message that coming together is beginning, staying together is progress, and working together is success. And I always believe in that. So if you
Oh, that's great.
collaborate and take the people together, I mean, you could actually almost get anything. If the Corinthians could speak directly to a young professional today, especially women breaking barriers today, what do you think they would say? Because you spoke to them personally, didn't you? So.
Oh yeah, I speak to them all the time. And they say this kind of thing to me. But yeah, I know what they'd say because I've seen them, be asked a similar question, and they basically say, "Don't let anybody tell you no. Don't let anybody tell you what you should be doing. If you love something, for them it was football, but if you love something, don't let someone stop you. Just go and do it." And I think, whatever field you're in, I'm not the best at sport. I'm not the best at football. I was never the first person picked for a team, but they inspire me every day. And I've got women from all walks of life that I look to, and we all struggle with work tasks. But I think you sort of need to latch onto those people, whatever background they're from. It might not be from the tech industry. Say it's a footballer, say it's a Corinthian, but that gives you that boost when you need it to think I'm not the first. And I think they would definitely say go for it, whatever field you're in. But I think for me, I think people think to be the first at something feels great. They sometimes misunderstand the struggle that we have as women in different fields, that actually it's hardest if you're the first. It's the hardest to push through those barriers. And to know that there's somebody in the past, however, a year ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, who pushed those boundaries as well. They're sort of stood on your shoulders and they're helping you. I think the fight for equality and inclusion is a bit easier when you know you've got those women behind you who've done it before from whatever field. So the message I know from them is definitely never take no for an answer. Always go for whatever it is you want to do.
No, you're absolutely true. And I would really like to add that the courage today is someone else's legacy tomorrow. And I think their courage that they showed is actually going to be something that when people see, inspire them to actually go ahead and do. That's what I remember when I was looking at your trailer. There was one of the Corinthians who said that I could kick really well and I was in the team, and that kind of confidence, that kind of boldness to know what you're good at and then just go out there and, perform. So thank you. Thank you not only for making this film, but also talking to me and also bringing out these stories. And I like the way the trailer's been put up. It did feel to me as if they are having a conversation with me. So thank you for that. Thank you for everyone watching. This conversation isn't ending. It's the beginning. So let's keep listening, let's keep building, and let's keep breaking barriers together. Thank you, Helen.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.